Hi everyone, this is Shilpa Shah, your instructor for this course. Before we get started, I want to thank you for choosing this course to learn SEO. Now, considering this is an SEO course for beginners, let's start at the very beginning. What is SEO? It is possible that even though you've heard the word SEO a million times, you want to be 100% sure you understand it. In textbook terms, it is a short form for search engine optimization. When your potential customer searches for some information using a search engine and your website has the answer to that question, they should be able to find you easily, right? And SEO is simply the actions you need to take to make sure that happens. Now, when most people talk about search engines, it's usually synonymous with Google. And it's useful to get some perspective before you start about why that is. According to StatCounter, Google has nearly 91% of the search engine market share. And yes, Bing ranks second, but it's hard to call it a close second. It is nowhere close to Google with just 3.6% of the search engine market share. Now, why do SEO? Why bother? The simplest reason, of course, is that if your target customers or visitors are able to find your blog or business easily online, it naturally results in more traffic to your website. And that too without really paying for it, at least not directly. And the visitors that you do attract are more often than not a perfect match because they searched for something that was relevant to your business offering. So you get the right audience. And then, of course, the more often you show up in the search results, the more your brand awareness and your popularity increases. So SEO is literally one of the cheapest ways to get traffic to your website, especially when you compare it to other sources like Google Ads, Facebook ads, sponsored posts, or influencer marketing. SEO is a huge topic. Let's break it down into easily digestible bites based on the three main aspects of SEO: on-page SEO, off-page SEO, and technical SEO. Let's start with on-page SEO. On-page SEO involves a number of actions that you can take on your website itself to improve your ranking. So in other words, it's the activity you do on your website to optimize your web content for your target audience and for search engines. Now, like every SEO action, the goal is obviously to increase your website ranking on search engines and generate organic traffic. For example, let's say you're a business coach who runs webinars for entrepreneurs. Now, to get the right group of people who are looking for coaching services to visit your website so that they can avail of your services, you will need to create content based on what they are searching for and what you're offering. So in this example, there could be possibly some of these keywords that they might type into search engines when they are looking for a business coach. Now, the process of identifying these search terms and creating content that matches that search is what on-page SEO is all about. Now, in order to create such useful and relevant content, there are a few aspects you must pay attention to closely. Some of these are probably what you may have already heard of: creating content using your target keywords, adding images that are relevant, creating content with a proper title and description, linking related content within your website wherever it makes sense to do that. This is what on-page SEO is all about. Now let's dig deeper into each of these. Keyword research is the process of identifying your target keywords. Keyword research is one of the most important tasks when it comes to SEO because almost everything you do with your website content revolves around that. Now, after you come up with a list of possible keywords, and we'll get to how you can do that in a bit, you also need to make sure that they are right for you. Are they relevant? How many users search for this phrase every month? Because if there aren't too many people searching for it, there's no point in you trying to create content for a small number of users. Most importantly, are all the big websites targeting the same keyword? Because if they are, then it will make it harder and longer for you to rank for. Now, for keyword research, you can use Google search to come up with an initial list of keywords. But while you may be able to get a list of keywords to begin with, it is a little tricky to get all of those other metrics we talked about that you need to evaluate and shortlist your keywords. So it is best to use an SEO tool. Like, for example, you can use these questions, and you can also use some of these titles. You can use all these other phrases that Google is telling you people search for. So you can use all of these informations to make shortlist some keywords. But how do you know the search difficulty? How do you know how many people are searching for it? And all of those other metrics. So there are ways to do it and extract that information from Google search. But the easiest way to do it really is use a tool. If you don't have the budget for an SEO tool, you can even choose a tool like Ubersuggest that has free plans. And for this course, that's what I'm going to use, because as a solopreneur, I too have a limited budget for my online businesses. And Ubersuggest has always been the tool I use for basic SEO. I will not cover Ubersuggest as a tool in detail in this course because that's not what its objective is. I'm simply going to use Ubersuggest here to teach you SEO. If you want to learn how to use Ubersuggest effectively, you could consider looking at my other course on Udemy. The name of the course is The Ultimate Course for Ubersuggest, and the link that's shown here is what you can use: bit.ly/Ubersuggest-Udemy. To begin with your keyword research, you'll have to sort of think backwards. For example, if you're writing a list of gift ideas for Christmas, and as you can imagine, that is a topic that is very much in demand around December especially, what do you think your potential audience might be looking for? You can start by looking for details about the most obvious keywords, which is why I have pulled up results for Christmas gifts, Christmas gift ideas, and gifts for Christmas. So let's take a look at the results here. Some of the metrics that are important for us to decide which keywords are right for us are, of course, the volume. That is the total number of months, or total number of searches in 1 month. And that tells you whether it is worth going for at all. If it's high, it tells you that there are enough people out there who are searching for that keyword. Cost per click is the hypothetical cost of what a click for this keyword would have cost you if you were to place a Google ad for it. Paid difficulty is how difficult it is to rank for this keyword in paid search. But since we are focusing primarily on SEO here and not talking about paid ads, what is relevant for you here is SEO difficulty, which means how difficult it is for you to rank for this keyword. We'll talk about these numbers and what these mean in a bit. But the higher these number, the more difficult it is for you to rank. So as you can imagine, these keywords are obviously hard to rank for and extremely competitive. But if you scroll further, there are plenty of other keywords that you can go for. For example, gifts for husband, Christmas gift baskets, and gifts for her. So you can solely focus on a list of Christmas gifts specifically and narrow it down for the recipient. For mom, for wife, a box, Christmas gifts box. So gifts for parents. Okay, looks like people need a lot of ideas for that. While it might not be a good idea to target and create content for a generic article about generic Christmas gifts for everyone, if you choose to create a bunch of posts for specifically parents or some of the ideas that we went through, Christmas gifts, baskets, then you might have a better chance of ranking your content in the search results. So let's talk about search difficulty. We stuck a pin in it. Now it's time to go and understand what those numbers mean. This slide gives you a general idea of the SEO difficulty and what it means, what those numbers that you just saw mean. As you can see from this chart, if it's less than 50, it's a safer bet than if it is higher than 50. And if you're a starter website with relatively low domain authority, I would recommend that you stick to keywords with an SEO difficulty of lower than 50. That will help you to rank relatively easily and quicker. After you've shortlisted keywords relevant for you and which are easy to rank for, what you want to do is build super helpful and unique content that satisfies the user's search intent. Search intent is what a user is looking for when they run a search. Now, there are 4 kinds of search intent usually. The first one is informational, wherein a user is looking for general information or broad information on a topic. An example of informational search intent would be life coaching, which implies someone is generally looking to understand more about life coaching. Navigational is another kind of search intent, which is more specific, where in this example, say somebody is looking for life coaching for teenagers and not just a broad search. Commercial search intent. That is where somebody is doing homework or research and looking for information that can help them to make a decision to buy something. So it's the search that they do just before buying. An example again in this life coaching would be where somebody wants to know the rates for a life coach. So life coach's average fee could be a commercial keyword in this example. Transactional means they are ready to buy. They understand what life coaching involves. They understand the cost of life coaching. And now they want to zero in and find the right life coach who lives close to them. Certified life coaches near me or top 10 life coaches in the Bay Area are examples of transactional search intent keywords. You should design your content based on the user's search intent, based on whether they are looking for information or looking to buy something. For example, if it is an informational keyword, you might create an article for your website's blog for it. But if it is a transactional or commercial intent keyword, you might choose to use those keywords on your product or store pages because you want them, if they're ready to buy, that's where you want to take them. Besides matching the search intent, you also want to make sure your article is unique. You can do extensive research and take inspiration from similar content from your competition, but you should not structure your content exactly and definitely not create content that is only based on those articles. One way to do it right is to do extensive research to create an article that is in-depth and full of many different takeaways. A sort of mix of all the best of all the articles that you refer to with your own unique take and experience added to it. Bonus points if you add statistics or data points to support your content. Or better still, a quote from an expert in that field. While making the content interesting, relevant, and unique, you also need to integrate your keywords into your content as often as possible in a way that seems natural to the flow of your article. Adding headers or subheaders that include your keywords is one way of structuring your content and around the user's keywords and focusing on topics that seem most important to the user. Now, the more keywords you have in a piece, the higher its visibility. But always remember that the idea is to create content for the users. Stuffing keywords or overusing keywords all over the place drives away users and is discouraged by search engines too. Here's a perfectly good example of keyword stuffing by SEMrush. With that, we come to the end of keyword research. And in the next lecture, we'll talk about optimizing your images for SEO. When you add images to your content, you want to add images that are relevant and make sense and actually add value to your reader. So you should ensure that your image is in line with the text context before or after the image. If not, it can get really confusing and it can be misinterpreted by search engines too. For example, here's a technical article about how to fix a white screen error. Now, these images that you see here are screenshots that explain the steps that are listed here. And as you can imagine, to be completely unnatural to add a picture of a handbag right in the middle of this article. Obviously, that would make no sense at all. You also want to choose images that are unique as far as possible. Stock images for which you have a license or are freely available via Creative Commons Zero license on sites such as Unsplash or Pixabay. Or if you really want to get creative, you can even use Canva and modify or tweak these stock images to make them original and unique and your own. You can even use artificial intelligence to generate your own unique image. But always, what is more important than your image's uniqueness, of course, is its relevance to the rest of your context. Another aspect that you want to pay attention to is the format of your image file. Images in the JPEG format are commonly used for photos. PNG files are usually used for illustrations and logos because PNG files allow you to use transparent backgrounds. Google provides support for images in a variety of formats, but the WebP format is what they recommend. It's relatively new and not many are aware of it. But Google recommends it strongly for performance based on the results of a study that it conducted comparing images of different formats. You also need to be careful how you name your image file. The name of your image file is important because it can help search engines read and understand your image. So, for example, naming an image of a cat as img10129.jpg doesn't help at all. Instead, naming it as white-cat.jpg gives the search engine some idea about what the image is all about. Each image has an attribute that you can use to describe it called alt, which means alternative text. Alt tags are super important to your images for both SEO and accessibility because you want to make sure your images are accessible. Visually impaired users use screen reader tools that read the text content on your website out aloud. And that's how they are able to access your content. For visual content, meaning images, the file name and alt text is what is used usually to interpret images. And that is what is usually read aloud by such tools. So if your alt text does not describe the image properly, it would make no sense at all to the website visitor. Likewise, search engines too have no way to read your images. So they too use your alt text or description to understand the image. Plus, there are times when a user may have blocked images in the browser, or the browser is unable to load an image for some reason. And that's when it uses this alt text and displays that on the browser for it instead of the actual image. When you create your image description or alt text, avoid duplicate alt tags for images on the same post or page. It absolutely adds zero value to you, to search engines, or to your website visitor. And just like in the case of your text context, don't try to force fit a long list of keywords into your alt text. Search engines totally discourage such tactics. Next, you need to make sure your image file size is as low as possible, without, of course, compromising on the quality of the image. And while there's no particularly recommended file size as such for an image, most popular websites seem to use images of file sizes between 50 KB to 100 KB. That's 50 kilobytes to 100 kilobytes. Larger images will take longer to download and it can slow down your website. Impatient users will simply move to another website. Plus, search engines hate slow web pages that take a long time to load. Luckily, there are plenty of ways to compress your image files safely. Tinify or tinypng.com is one such free service that is available for you to compress your images. And yes, when it comes to videos, avoid animated GIFs because animated GIFs can lead to large bloated files. Instead, use videos like MPEG, MP4, because that could help reduce the file size significantly. Using a WebM video is even better. This is Google recommended really, and you could go through this article that Google's developers have created over here, which explains why it recommends MPEG videos or better still WebM videos instead of animated GIFs. And if you're interested, here's an article that I have written about 10 actionable image optimization hacks that you can go through. The link is right here. With that, we come to the end of image optimization. And in the next lecture, we'll learn how to write useful and meaningful meta descriptions. Let's begin by understanding what are meta description. This, what you see here, is the meta title. And this piece of text just below the title that's shown on the search page is the meta description. So a meta description is a short summary of the content on your web page. Now, meta descriptions are more or less a content pitch, giving the readers a good idea of what to expect. So obviously, they have to be really good as the title, because both these elements together drive traffic to your website. When a user searches for a certain phrase using a search engine, the search engine uses your meta description as one of the many deciding factors to decide if your content is relevant to the searched term. If it is, then it lists the page in the search results and shows the meta description and the meta title along with a link to the website. The user then reads the meta description and clicks on the link if it matches what the user is searching for and if that description is compelling enough. So this meta description is what users read and then use to decide whether your article is worth reading, which is why you should absolutely not underestimate the power of meta descriptions. For example, if I were to go through these meta descriptions, this is a waste. Going somewhere, this is a good pitch because it tells me everything that I can do with it. I can create a customized itinerary, I can book hotels, flights. This one is also okay, but this really, the trip planner Lila is the most enticing of all these. On this page, again, what you see is a very short meta description that literally doesn't tell me a thing. Going back to what are meta descriptions, basically these are snippets of text that are so important because they can literally make or break your website's click-through rate. Potentially, you could really get a huge boost in traffic if only you pay attention and carefully choose your words. This article by Google lists the best practices for meta titles. Now, for example, these are some points that you should consider while writing a meta description. The first thing, of course, is for it to be meaningful and relevant. The meta description has to bring out your value proposition. Whom is the content written for? What problem does it solve? And why is your content different from your competitors? So highlight your article's main strengths in your meta description without being too salesy. You need to get the length right as well, because while there's actually technically no limit to the length of the meta description, but typically Google truncates it and adjusts it based on the display area that is available, based on the device that the user is using to view your content. So typically, I would say around 155 to 160 characters is just about right. And that's also why you should front load the most important information within the first 120 characters so that you make sure that the most important part is visible in the search results. Include a call to action, meaning encourage your users to interact with your website with a strong call to action that matches the searcher's instinct. For example, if they're looking to educate themselves, you might have a call to action like learn more. If you think the intent is to buy, then you might say shop now. And including that will actually drive more clicks. Include keywords in your meta descriptions by all means, but avoid keyword stuffing. Include it in a way that is natural and is related to the user's search query. Don't force the keywords just using it out of context or repetitively. And add an appeal to your audience's emotions. Make them curious or excited or feel a sense of urgency. Don't copy and paste the same meta description for all your web pages. If your content is unique on each page, why would you want to waste this excellent opportunity to connect with your audience and to tell the search engines about your content using unique meta descriptions? So avoid duplicate meta descriptions by all means. And even though it seems like a no-brainer, it is worth repeating here. Avoid clickbait. Don't write misleading information just to attract visitors to your website with false claims. It will obviously annoy them and make them leave your site immediately. Your bounce rate will increase. Google will eventually stop showing your website in the search results for those keywords. This is a black hat SEO strategy. And while it might give you a quick boost of organic traffic for a short period, it will cause you a lot of harm that will be very hard to come back from. You can think of meta descriptions as a trailer for a movie. I mean, it needs to be catchy enough for them to get hooked onto. But, if they click on your meta description and it's not what they thought it was, they're sure to be disappointed. So to summarize, it is important that you write an accurate meta description for the content on your website that search engines will love, and more importantly, your users will love. With that, we are done with meta descriptions. It is time to talk about internal links. Internal linking is something you can control, so you should make the most of it. Internal links are links from your website to elsewhere on your website. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the point of doing this? When a search engine sees links on a web page, it usually follows those links and crawls those link pages as well. So when a web page has a large number of links, search engines believe that this content is important and useful. So this is true for both internal links and even external links. For example, let's take a look at this web page, which is an article about how to turn off comments. And one of the steps in there is how to log in. And this links to another post on the same website that shows you how to log in case you need to know that. Here's another example where this whole article is about how to A/B test. And as you can see here, there are plenty of opportunities here for the website to add internal links. When it talks about website optimization, for example, where it explains conversion rate, there are plenty of opportunities here for them to add internal links to other places on their website. So here's why you should do internal linking. It helps users navigate your website easily by discovering related content. It also helps search engines crawl your website more effectively. The other thing it does is it increases the amount of time that a visitor spends on your website, which is again one of the factors used by search engines while ranking your content. Because when a user is reading through one of your articles and they click on a link to another website, another web page on your site, they keep moving between different pages on your website and they stay on longer. And it improves your bounce rate as well. It also helps pass authority among linked articles. Like I was saying earlier, if there's a page that has a lot of internal links towards it, the search engines give more weightage to that piece of content. There are two types of internal links. One type is navigational, meaning links that you have on your website to help a visitor discover and access content on your website. Like links in the menu over here, or in the sidebar, or in the footer over here. So these are all navigational links. The other kind of links are contextual links, meaning links that are related to the content on a page. For example, in this post, you can see links that are related to the content on this page. So this link goes out to another web page on the same website. Similarly, you see some more internal links here that are based on the context of the content around it. They're not random links. These are links that are related to this particular topic. Here are a few tips to get internal linking right. The first thing is to make sure you use proper anchor text. And by proper, I mean use text that makes sense for the page that you're linking out to. It shouldn't be just irrelevant words like click here, read now, or learn more. Because the text that you use is the text that the search engine is going to use to relate to that page. For example, here you can see the links that are present on this page to other pages on this website. As you can see, this anchor text here, wordpress.com versus wordpress.org, clearly explains what the next page is all about, what the page that it is linking out to is all about. So this is a very good example of proper internal links. The other thing is to make sure you don't use the same anchor text for two different pages on your website, because that can get really confusing for search engines. It won't know which page to show up for that set of keywords. Next, make sure all your internal links are always do follow, meaning you pass on the link juice to your linked pages. And if you're not sure what the meaning of do follow is, I'll explain that in a minute. The third thing to do is to try and use automated tools wherever possible, because internal linking is a huge exercise that you need to do for every single page or post on your website. And if you use WordPress, then you have some popular SEO plugins like Yoast or Rank Math, and they have features that show you suggestions for internal links. So wherever possible, try and use a tool for internal linking to make your life easy. Okay, so coming to do follow or no follow. All links have a follow or no follow tag. A follow link is a way to encourage a search engine to go ahead and track the link page. It's like a strong recommendation from the linking website saying that it trusts the linked content. And yes, a follow link has a little more credibility than a no follow link, but that's not to say that all no follow links are useless, because they can still generate traffic for you from the websites that link to you. Now, this is in the context especially of external backlinks. So the idea is to balance out do follow and no follow links, but for internal links, you have to make sure they're always do follows. For external links, you can have no follow links as well, because if you have only do follow links to your website, it can make your backlink profile look a little suspicious to search engines. Now let's talk about a simple but extremely effective hack that gives you an excellent opportunity to create a web of internal links. Creating pillar content. You will probably see it being referred to online as corner store content or topic clusters. Basically, it is an in-depth article that contains well-written, well-researched, evergreen content that's important to your website. And you can then create other articles around this topic that can be internally linked to from your main pillar content. For example, if I had a website about life coaching, an example would be to create pillar content around creating a guide to become a successful life coach. And then you could probably create a bunch of cluster articles or smaller articles around that you could then use to link out internally to. For example, life coaching statistics, best practices, certifications, ways to find your clients, everything that is related to becoming a successful life coach. Let's also take a look at some more examples of good pillar content. You can see this is a guide on this website about A/B testing, and it is a detailed guide. It also gives this website an opportunity to link out to other cluster articles around the same topic. And you can see this is really a good example of internal linking done right. It has plenty of links to other related content on its website. Here's another one again, which is a good example. Linking to the meaning of stock market, linking to other places where terms are explained, and so on. So make the most of this concept known as pillar content, where you create a really important article and about something that is your website's core niche. And that will give you an opportunity to create plenty of internal links. Now let's understand the reasons why we should put in so much effort to create pillar content. Because even though it might be obvious, it's worth understanding and appreciating the reasons. One, of course, is that it helps your readers stay on your website longer because they are browsing through different articles on your website. It reduces the bounce rate too. Bounce rate is when a user only reads one article on your website and jumps off your website. So it reduces the bounce rate, which is good. And your pillar content serves as a detailed article that generates lots of internal links, which search engines love. And typically, if it's a guide about a topic that is popular, it makes it backlink worthy and attracts external backlinks as well from other websites because it is really comprehensive. But remember that creating topic clusters is not an overnight thing. It takes days, weeks, even months possibly. And even after that, you need to invest a lot of time to monitor the pillar page and optimize it regularly. But the benefits are so huge that you really don't want to ignore this. Just plan your content calendar around it and execute your plan one step at a time. Now it is time to talk about off-page SEO. Off-page SEO is all about actions that you take not on your own website directly, but elsewhere. And those actions impact your website's ability to rank in the search engine results. There are 4 main aspects of off-page SEO that we're going to talk about. Social media, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. Creating guest posts on other websites. Generating backlinks, do follow or no follow backlinks from other websites to your website. And brand mentions. Gaining brand popularity, getting mentioned by other influencers or users, consumers, audience, readers. So we're going to talk about all these 4 aspects one by one in the next lectures. There are largely 4 actions related to off-page SEO, of which social media is the most common. So getting onto social media and building a legitimate audience there can really boost your rankings because Google likes to see traffic flowing in from social media to validate your online presence. When I visit a website that is new to me, typically when I'm looking for some information and I want to know whether I can rely on the information that they have on their website and whether the website is still maintained or not, because truth be told, there are more abandoned websites out there than alive and running. So what I typically do is I look at their social media accounts. Do they post regularly? What is their level of engagement? And whether it is something that is still in use, which is what search engines look for as well, a well-rounded presence. So with social media, you want to choose a social media platform where your ideal audience hangs out. Is it LinkedIn or is it Instagram? For example, if you're a fashionable brand for young adults, LinkedIn is not the first thing that comes to mind. So choose one where your ideal customer will probably be around to check you out. The second thing to remember is it doesn't matter whether you pick one platform or many platforms. Just make sure you take on only what you can keep up with, because a social media account with posts that are erratic and random or outdated create a very poor impression. The third thing to do in order to be consistent is to use tools to automate, especially ones that help you to repurpose your content across your website and social media so that you don't have to waste a lot of time creating new content every time. The tools should be able to help you to schedule multiple posts across platforms. Tools like Hootsuite or Buffer are very popular, and the way to make the most of it is to try and take a blog post and generate a few social media worthy lines of it using different data points or conclusions or quotes. So repurpose your content as much as possible and connect and engage with your audience on social media. When you post something on social media platforms, you can simply use the same target keywords that you have researched and shortlisted for your web content, wherever, of course, it makes sense. But as always, remember, you can't do any keyword stuffing. That is true for whatever content you generate, whether it is your website or social media. Next, you can consider trying influencer marketing, wherein you collaborate with influencers who have a following that overlaps with your target audience. You could either reach out to individuals directly, any individuals who are influencers in your niche, and they are open to helping you to boost your product, or you could consider hiring a marketing agency that can help you connect to influencers. Your website, your blog posts must include buttons for social media sharing. That makes it easy for your users to share your content with others who might find the same content as interesting as they did. Your social media profile is as important as your website's About Us page. So make sure it includes a proper profile picture, your logo, your brand colors, if that makes sense, and of course a link to your website. Engaging on social media. Whenever there is a conversation on social media that you think you have something of value to add to it, don't hesitate to jump in and interact with others. Also, be sure to reply to anyone who mentions you or tags you. And most importantly, be yourself. Let your personality or your brand's personality be reflected in all your communication. That's the only way that others will be able to relate to you and like you. Not a social media like, but a real life like. Cross-promote your content, your website on social media and social media on your website. You can add links in your social media posts to your website wherever it makes sense to do that to increase your website's traffic. And similarly, if there are any social media posts that are relevant to your content, then embed those posts or tweets in your content on the website. This is the easiest way to cross-promote your website on social media and vice versa. The next off-page SEO action that we will talk about now is guest posting. Basically, guest posting on other blogs so that your credibility as an authority in your niche improves. I simply cannot emphasize this one enough. Guest blog as much as you can on websites that are visited regularly by your audience. You usually get an opportunity to add a backlink to your website, either within the content that you're writing or in your author bio. And even if you don't always get link juice via a do follow link, it will establish your presence as an expert in your field. Here are some things that you should bear in mind while creating guest posts. Avoid randomness. Don't create random links to random content on your website. Or worse still, don't create guest post links only back to your homepage. What you need to do is plan in advance.
Create a list of the most important content, say around 10 articles or 10 pages or products on your website beforehand. Decide at least 5 most important keywords for each of these 10 pages. And these keywords should then be your anchor text when you create backlinks via your guest posts. Look for complementary websites in the same niche as yours, because that's where your visitors are hanging out. And write about related topics that your audience and their audience would be interested in. So if you have an e-commerce business that sells pet food, for example, contact websites that have tips about pet care. Focus on sites that are better than yours, with slightly higher domain authority than yours. And gradually keep aiming for websites with domain authority that's higher and higher and higher. And share examples of your previously published posts when you reach out to them. Look at your list of complementary websites that accept guest posts. Go through the content on their website. What's missing? What content would prove valuable to their audience and to you? If you run an e-commerce store, content-based websites are a good idea because they usually provide informational content rather than sales-driven posts. So they won't be direct competitors of yours. And reach out to these sites with ideas that you have for them. You could possibly even get paid for some of these. You might possibly even get paid by some of these websites. Give guest posts your best shot. Create content that is better than your website's content. And irrespective of where the content gets published, it is your reputation that is on the line. So don't take it lightly. Promote the post as much as possible, wherever possible, on different forums, social media platforms, wherever possible. Treat it just like you would treat content on your own website. So with that, we are done with guest posting. The next off-page SEO action that we will cover is generating backlinks, as in getting other websites and preferably more established websites to link back to your website in a context that is relevant. Here's an interesting statistic that tells you how important it is for your website to have backlinks. The gap between the number 1 result in Google and the positions 2 to 10 is 3.8x when it comes to backlinks. Interesting, isn't it? Backlinks tell search engines that your content and your website are worth a visit. It tells them that your website is legitimate and reputable. This here is a really good detailed article about the right way to generate plenty of backlinks for your website. So like I said earlier, do not buy links. Google has enough ways to figure out whether your link is a paid link. Next, use tools to check your backlink profile. Tools like Ubersuggest allow you to check your backlinks for free. You simply navigate to backlinks, put in the website for which you want to check the backlinks, and hit search. Here you get information about all the backlinks that you have. Whether they are follow or no follow, you can filter on it. And you also get the spam score. If you see a particularly spammy website, meaning a website with a very high spam score, it is worth disavowing it so that you don't get a manual action. To disavow spammy links, there are these 2 articles by Google which explain how to do it in detail. Essentially what you do is you go over here and you can select your property, that means your website, from this drop down, and upload a disavow file that you formatted according to the instructions that are mentioned over here. They have given a lot of examples as well. And I'll show you an example of a text file that I had created for one of my websites. This one right here. You can either select a page to disavow, or if you think the entire domain is shady, you can simply just put one domain over there and dissolve all the pages from the entire domain. So with that, we are done with backlinks. In this lecture, the off-page SEO action that we will cover is brand reputation or brand mentions. It essentially means making sure your brand or business is talked about on other websites or user forums or communities or social media. Brand mentions are an almost intangible but important factor when it comes to SEO. Search engines use this as a measure of how popular you are. Interestingly, these references to your brand may or may not include a link to your website. You can track these brand mentions using various tools like Brand24 or brand mentions. But the simplest way I like to do it is to set up a Google alert. All you do is you navigate to google.com/alerts, sign into your Google account, and set an alert for you so that Google searches the internet, and whenever your brand is mentioned, it sends you an alert. So if you can't afford complicated and expensive tools for brand mentions, this is the simplest and most basic way of tracking your brand mentions.
That brings us to an end of off-page SEO.
And now we come to the third aspect of SEO, technical SEO. Technical SEO is about taking care of the less obvious or behind the scenes aspects of your website. And even though these elements actually directly impact your user experience, they often get overlooked. But bear in mind that you can have a keyword optimized article that has plenty of backlinks, and you've probably done everything that you think is right with it, but it will still struggle to rank on search engines if you ignore technical SEO. Search engines need to be able to crawl, index, and display your website properly to rank it. Doing technical SEO properly guarantees that search engines can do that efficiently.
So there's good news and bad news when it comes to technical SEO.
The good news is that it is easy to use free tools to get a technical SEO audit for your website. The bad news is that you may need to hire a developer for some of these improvements in case you're not comfortable with doing them yourself. So like I said earlier, you can create the best content on the web, optimize it for on-page SEO and off-page SEO. But if your website takes too long to load, you will lose traffic. Google's prioritization policy is users first. And with that in mind, search engines want to demote pages that take a long time to load. Because slow loading pages frustrate users who quickly leave the website without waiting. How often have you yourself closed a web page because it takes too long to load? Very often, right? So Google notices this user behavior and de-ranks your page when it takes a long time to display. So how do you do this? First, you check your page speed insights using this free tool by Google called pagespeed.web.dev. Let's take a look at that. This is pretty intuitive. You simply stick your website in here and wait for the results. Let's take a look at the results for some of these websites. Now you need to aim for green for all of these factors. Yellow is slightly tolerable, but red is not acceptable. It means you should take corrective action immediately. And there are a lot of technical recommendations that you might see here. For example, there are quite a few technical recommendations that are listed here, but there are some simple and highly effective actions that you really should take. So let's talk about those. The first thing you need to do is to compress images. Now, how do you do that? There are plenty of free tools like TinyPNG. This is my favorite go-to free tool. There are other tools that you can see like Pic Resize or Image Resizer that you can use as well. But TinyPNG is what I prefer using. The lower your image file size, the faster your website will load, and you have to try to do this without compromising on the image quality, which is why tools like this will help. These are all free platforms that compress your images without impacting the quality too much. The next thing that you can do is to Activate caching. With browser caching, the browser stores your web page data. This means that when your users revisit that page, it loads faster because the browser won't need to send as many requests to the server. The third thing that you can do is to use a CDN or Content Delivery Network. You could use an easy to set up CDN like the one that Cloudflare offers, or you can check with your hosting provider as well if they offer CDN services too. Most premium hosting providers have CDN services too that they offer. The next aspect of technical SEO that is very important is responsiveness. A responsive website is one that is able to adapt to different mobile devices or desktops. These days, mobile devices of all sizes are available, whether they are phones or tablets. So you want to make sure you are catering to consumers who use your website using these devices. Fonts, visual and interactive elements like pop-ups, tabs, and navigation are some of the most common things that most websites mess up when it comes to creating a good user experience on mobile devices. And these are the most critical elements that you should pay attention to. And here's why you can't ignore designing for mobile devices. With more than 60% of browsing done using mobile devices, how can you ignore this huge market? Browser Stack is a popular tool that is used to check how your website looks on different browsers and devices. So if you want to really make sure your website caters to all sorts of devices, then Browser Stack is one of the tools that you can use. The next element of technical SEO is making sure you have no broken links. Broken links are when you have links within your content that lead to nowhere because the linked web page is no longer reachable. And these dead links could be within your website or external sites. Broken links can really adversely impact your search engine rankings. Search engines struggle to understand your site structure if you have links that lead to nowhere. Plus, your web visitors will also find it frustrating to find broken links and they will move away from your website. So you have to make sure you update broken links and replace them with links that do work. The reason why this happens usually is if you're linking to an external web page that no longer exists or has had its URL or permalink changed. And this can be true for internal links too. You may have deleted some content that you had pointers to from elsewhere within your website, or you may have modified the slug. So you need to use a broken links checker tool and run a check from time to time, say at least once a month or so. You can use a free tool like the one that Ahrefs provides for checking broken links by navigating to ahrefs.com/broken-link-checker. It's pretty intuitive to use. You simply stick in your website over here and click on check broken links. So it has detected 2 broken links that do not exist. And so all you need to do is go back. This is the content. This is the page on which this broken link has been found. So you can navigate to your website and replace them with other links. And now website security. If you've tried to visit a website and you've been shown a warning message by your browser saying your connection is not secure, it's one of the things that alerts you to the fact that the connection is not an HTTPS connection. In such cases, your browser usually then goes on to list what could happen to your data and discourage you from visiting that site. You might have noticed that these websites don't have a lock symbol just before the website URL. This lock symbol and a HTTPS prefix instead of HTTP are what indicate that the website you are trying to visit has a valid SSL certificate installed, meaning the data that you exchange with the website is encrypted. Your website absolutely must have an SSL certificate installed. Also, you need to make sure your HTTP site redirects automatically to the HTTPS one, meaning if someone types in http://courseblock.com, they should be redirected to https://courseblock.com. You can contact your hosting provider for help because most premium hosting providers have ways to provide either paid or free certificates.
With that, we come to the end of this course. If you want to learn Ubersuggest, there's a 90-minute course on Udemy by me. You can use Ubersuggest's free plan to follow along in case you don't want to sign up until you're absolutely sure it is right for you. Check out the link to the course in the description. And I hope to see you there. I wish you all the very best with your online efforts. Thanks so much for watching.